So when you think of a popular children's book series, what comes to mind? Most people would think of series like Harry Potter, Big Nate, and Winnie the Shit. But a series that always comes to mind when I think of a popular children's book series has got to be Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Created by author Jeff Kenny and first published in April 2007, the series follows a normal average kid named Greg Heffley, who may or may not be a psychopath, who writes in his journal, about growing up and surviving middle school, with many different side characters joining him along the way, like his best friend Rowley, who is sort of the victim to Greg's abuse, Rodrick, Greg's older brother who is really popular, his two parents Frank and Susan, and let's not forget about Manny,
the incarnation of the devil himself.
When these books were first published, they instantly blew up in popularity, with many readers enjoying the simple life of a kid, as well as the basic but appealing artwork that was on each page. The series is currently on its 16th book, with a 17th book coming soon, and many more to follow. It's clear that Diary of a Wimpy Kid is something of a cultural phenomenon. Even people online still love this series, making some pretty funny fanfictions and memes that I unironically find hilarious. And growing up, I adored this series. I collected almost all the books, I read them over and over again. It was the only book series that I could actually read, with the other series being Horrid Henry. Anyone remember Horrid Henry? I don't know, I kinda like that series. Now with a series this successful, 20th Century Fox decided to come in and produce 3 live-action Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. The first one is simply titled Diary of a Wimpy Kid, second one being Rodrick Rules, and the third one being Dog Days. While the films didn't do amazing with critics or do that well at the box office, fans adored these movies, including me. I was obsessed with these movies growing up. I would watch them over and over again, and I could even quote certain scenes of this movie off by heart. As I've gotten older, I've sort of forgotten about these movies, until one night when I got really drunk, and I was scrolling through the TV channels and saw Rodrick Rules airing on RTE. And yes, I still use cable TV, shut up. And I was like, hey, I remember those movies. They were pretty swag. So the next day, I decided to watch all 3 of those movies and relive my childhood. And what did I think of them? Well, let's find out as we go over the Diary of a Wimpy Kid film trilogy and see how they hold up after 10 years. Also, I'm not talking about the long haul or the shitty animated version on Disney+, go fuck yourselves. So to start off this legendary trilogy, we got Diary of Wimpy Kid, released in 2010 and directed by Thor Ferendal, fuck, I was calling him Thor Ferendal, I don't care, fuck this. The film follows Greg Heffley, played by Zachary Gordon, as we see him and his best friend Rowley, played by Robert Capron, begin their first year of middle school. Whatever that is. Look, I live in Ireland, so I don't really understand what the education system is like over in the States. And the film just kinda shows us what they get up to throughout the year, as Greg tries desperately to become the most popular kid in school, while also learning not to be a massive prick and be happy with what he has. There is also a cheese touch, by the way, that really impacts the plot, but I kind of forgot that, but yeah, there's like a cheese thing. Now this plot is really simple, which is actually a good thing. Greg has a goal, and we see him try and achieve his goal, while meeting many different side characters and seeing Greg change throughout the film. Rewatching this film for the first time in a long while, it is really good, but it ain't the masterpiece I remember it being when I was younger. But there are a lot of aspects to this movie that I genuinely love and admire. I'll go over the positives first. Firstly, one thing I really like about this movie is the way it looks. The movie has a very simple, yet charming look to it. It sort of reminds me of those old John Hughes movies from the 80s, like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The movie was shot on film, giving it a nice old-fashioned vibe to it, and the directing is very simple, but I just really love it. They also sometimes include these animations that perfectly replicate the illustrations from the books, and they look really good. I also really like how they portrayed the life of a kid in middle school. It feels so real, and it doesn't feel fake in the slightest. And instead of creating a deep, complex, or even complicated story, they went for a more slice-of-life approach with this film, where they focus more on the characters and what they get up to in their lives. That's another thing I really like about this movie, the characters. All the characters here are played brilliantly by their respected actors, and they sort of feel like real and believable people. I'll start with the main few characters. Greg Heffley is a terrible person. He's rude, egotistical, doesn't care about those around him, and thinks he's better than everyone else. Hell, the only reason he's even writing this diary is because he thinks that he's gonna be famous one day, and he writes about his life so he doesn't have to explain it to his fans. And I thought I was egotistical, god damn. Now, the whole point of this movie is that Greg learns not to be such a terrible friend and slowly become a better person. But this is sort of where my main issues with the film comes in, as I found Greg to be a bit too unlikable. I understand how they wanted to show him change throughout the film, and it is nice seeing him become a better person, but I think they went a bit too far making him unlikable. He does so many shitty things throughout the film that just makes me hate him. Like, there's this one scene where he's doing a school play and he's singing as one of the trees, then he sees his brother Rodrick recording his performance and he freezes up on stage ruining the play. Like, bro, it's not that big a deal, just sing, god damn it! And he even makes his popularity chart in school and places himself at number 19, expecting him to be at number 1 by the end of the school year. But he mainly acts like a massive prick towards his best friend Rowley. Greg has this thing in his head that Rowley would be completely lost without him, and we see Greg doing lots of shitty things to Rowley, like judge the way he dresses, breaks his arm, and even blames Rowley for terrorizing children. Like, fucking hell, Greg, he's an asshole! When Rowley and Greg eventually have their falling out, since Rowley kind of realizes that Greg's a terrible friend, Rowley instantly makes a new friend and is doing great for himself, while Greg is the one who is lost and has no one. I think what sort of saves Greg from being a straight up awful character is that he actually gets punished for all the shitty things he does, and he learns his lesson. While I do think they went a bit too far with making Greg an asshole, and he is probably my least favorite part of the film, I do like how he actually gets punished for all he does, and he actually changes. Plus, like I said, Zachary Gordon does a really good job on portraying Greg, and his performance is very believable. In terms of the other characters, Rowley is genuinely a really fun and charming character. He isn't afraid to act the way he wants, and just enjoys being himself, which is an aspect of his character I really like. And of course, Robert Capron does a really good performance. In fact, all the actors do an amazing job. They all feel so real and believable with their performances, and the acting doesn't feel forced at all. One aspect of the film I haven't really touched upon is the family life. The entire Heffley family isn't that present throughout the film. They do play much bigger roles in the later films, like in Rodrick Rules and Dog Days, since those films are focused on Greg's relationship with his family. But in this movie, they kept the story focused on Greg and Rowley, but I really do like it when Greg's family is on screen. They all act and behave like a real family, with Frank and Susan surprisingly feeling like real and genuine parents who care about their children. Manny, who is just sort of there, I guess. And the legend himself, the god amongst men, the savior of the universe, Rodrick. He is definitely one of my favorite characters in the entire trilogy. He isn't really that active in this movie, only showing up in a few scenes here and there, but he will become a more prominent character in the later installments. But he is still so much fun to watch here. The way he terrorizes Greg, and is also just so charming to watch, is amazing. And also, Devin Bostick. Oh, Devin Bostick, god damn! Looking fresh, bro! Does an excellent job in playing Rodrick. Now, while I do really enjoy this film, one aspect I didn't really like that much, aside from Greg, was the humor. The film has some good jokes, don't get me wrong, and I laughed quite a few times while watching this movie, but most of the humor here just didn't really work for me. Often the jokes can feel pretty cringy and just not funny. There is this one scene where Greg visits the weird kid Frankly's house. By the way, this kid definitely grew up to be a Discord mod, and the entire scene is so weird and sort of made me uncomfortable. But like I said, the film genuinely has some good and funny moments. I really fucking love Frank's character in the movie. They sort of play him off as a dumb father, but they don't go too far with it. And I love the scene where he just chucks a bucket of water over Greg and Rowley, thinking they are teenagers. That's honestly fucking hilarious.
Sorry. I thought you were teenagers.
Ow. Maybe next year, Pop.
Hey!
So yeah, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a flawed but fun movie. It goes for a nice simple slice of life approach to its story, has amazing acting, and some really great characters to help carry this movie. I wouldn't say this movie is amazing, since it does suffer from a really unlikable main character and humor that can be pretty hit or miss, but all in all, it's a really good movie. The film did fairly well at the box office and got decent reviews from critics, I guess. So Fox immediately decided to greenlight a sequel for the next year. So let's see how the sequel turned out, shall we? Dude, I'm not even joking, but Rodrick Rules is one of my favorite movies of all time growing up. I would watch it on repeat over and over again and knew the entire story off by heart. But it's been a good few years since I've seen this film, and I was worried I was going to be blinded by nostalgia, but that is far from the case. After watching this movie for the first time in years, it not only holds up better than I remember, but it is 10 times better than the previous movie. So what's it about, I hear you asking? Well, this film takes place in the beginning of the new school year for Greg, where he meets a new girl named Holly, and slowly starts to develop feelings for her. And by slowly, I mean the second he sees her. But while this love plot is going on, Susan really wants Greg and Rodrick to start getting along, and starts paying them with this weird cryptocurrency to start being nice to each other. You know, looking back in this movie, Greg would definitely invest in NFTs. And this sort of works, but not really. After a fight at church, Greg and Rodrick are left home alone, and Rodrick decides to throw a massive party, even though they weren't allowed to have anyone over. God damn, Rodrick. Bit of a daredevil, aren't ya? They're able to clean up the entire house and cover up the entire party, except for the fact that they swapped out the bathroom door with a door from the basement that doesn't have a lock on it. Then lots of shit happens. They go to a mall, there's a talent show, the love plot is still happening, and Greg and Rodrick slowly learn to get along with each other. Hooray! Now, I mentioned earlier how I wasn't the biggest fan of the humor in the first film, and how I thought Greg was really unlikable, and also how I really loved the Heffley family, but they were barely in the film. Well, this movie completely fixes all the issues I had with the first film. Greg is a much more likable character, and doesn't feel like a massive asshole, and the comedy here is genuinely fucking hilarious. I laughed so hard at so many points during this film, and I'm not talking just a slight giggle, I'm talking laughing my ass off. Most of the comedy mainly comes from the characters and how they interact with each other. I'll start with Rodrick. I was joking about him earlier, but he is genuinely one of my favorite characters here. Devin Bostic does such a fantastic job in playing him. I sure hope they never dare recast Rodrick with a different actor, since Devin Bostic really did a great performance, and his relationship with Greg is honestly just so nice to watch. In the first 30 minutes of the film, they do not get along, like, at all. And it doesn't feel fake or phoned in. It feels like two brothers who aren't getting along. They eventually have their fight in church, and as punishment, they aren't allowed to go on holidays with the family. Which in hindsight doesn't make any sense. Like, why would Frank and Susan leave them on their own? Like, seems kinda stupid to me, but whatever. Anyway, when they leave, Rodrick instantly throws a house party. I remember watching this when I was younger and thinking it was the coolest party I've ever seen in a movie, and I dreamt that one day I could attend a house party just like that. But looking back, that party seemed dead as fuck, man. Like, sure, there are some women there, but where is the alcohol? You can't throw a banging party and not have alcohol. Most parties I go to nowadays are usually just sausage parties, and we all get really drunk, causing me to get hungover the next morning. Really fun times, I'd highly suggest it. But the next morning, Rodrick and Greg have to hide the fact that they threw a big house party. But like I said, they accidentally swap out the bathroom door for another door that doesn't have a lock. This leads to both Greg and Rodrick sort of teaming up together and starting to get along. They also just deadass gaslight their parents about them never having a bathroom door, and it is genuinely funny to watch.
I know there was a lock on that door.
There wasn't. Trust me, Greg has walked in on me like a million times, and if there was a lock, I would use it. In fact, maybe you should put one on.
Rodrick is a straight gaslighter for real. As the film goes on, we see Rodrick give some advice to Greg on how to live the easy life. We start to learn that Rodrick isn't a dumb, stereotypical older brother, but rather a guy who is genuinely really smart, but would rather use it to get out of work, and play dumb so it will lower everyone's expectations on him. There's even this one really nice scene where they both just sit in the parking lot and just talk about school relationships and life in general, and it's a really charming scene. But then right after, the cat is let out of the bag. When Frank and Susan find out that they threw a house party and they were lying about the bathroom door, Frank just snaps and goes completely apeshit. And when watching this scene, I was deadass on the floor laughing, since the actor who plays Frank is putting so much passion and energy into his role.
I haven't been able to look at that bathroom door for 2 weeks.
I knew that door had a lock on it! And everybody was trying to make me feel like I was losing my mind!
We're just gonna...
I'm going upstairs to a bathroom that has a lock on it, and no one can tell me that it doesn't.
Also, did you know that the actor who plays Frank here also played the pig from Disney's Chicken Little? every scene with the family is just amazing. They get way more time to flesh out, and we get to see the bond between Rodrick and Greg slowly grow. Seeing them hate each other in the beginning of the film, then slowly become closer and closer is honestly really sweet. Rowley is also in this movie, and while he isn't as important as he was in the first film, he is really active here, with him and Greg learning from what happened in the first film and being much closer friends. We also get this iconic scene where Rowley lip syncs to a late 2000s song to try and become internet famous. Yeah, this film is a bit outdated with its internet humor, but it's very minor and doesn't take up a majority of the runtime, unlike other movies. Now, if I were to talk about one issue I have with this movie, the love plot with Holly and Greg is a bit unnecessary. It does sort of get better as the film goes on, like when Rodrick and Greg are staying at their granddad's old folks home, and Greg runs into Holly there, and they have a really nice scene together. I really like that. Then there's this scene where we see Greg run around the home in his underwear. Yeah, that must have been pretty awkward to film. But that is the only real issue I have with this movie. There's also this talent show subplot that gets brought up in the beginning, then they sort of forget about it for a while, until the parents don't allow Roger to perform at the concert. However, they eventually let him perform when Greg agrees to do a magic show with Rowley. Also, this magic show is just really goddamn funny. I love it when Rowley thinks he murdered a pigeon that he kept in his pocket all day. That was pretty goddamn funny.
Be free, little friend.
Oh.
That thing's dead. I had him in my pocket too long.
And damn, that music performance from Rodrick and his band Loaded Diaper was music to my ears. Truly a musical performance that'll go down in history, alongside SpongeBob singing Sweet Victory that one time. Honestly, rewatching this movie for the first time in ages was amazing. While I did enjoy the first film a lot, it still had some issues that really brought it down for me. But it feels like with this movie, all my issues are fixed. Even the directing here looks so much better than before. They brought on a new guy named David Bowers to direct this movie, and he would even direct the later film Dog Days. He is mainly known for films like Astro Boy and Flushed Away. Who remembers Flushed Away? The film with Hugh Jackman as a rat.
Oh shit! A rat!
The cinematography and filmmaking is so much better than the previous film. Everything with this movie is just an improvement. The writing, directing, the story, and especially the characters and humor is really well done. So far, this is my favorite Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. It's so weird seeing a sequel that actually surpasses the original in quality. I guess Devin Bostic really is our Lord and Savior, because he really made this movie good. And I love Devin Bostic so much. Anyway, onto the final Diary of a Wimpy Kid film released. Well, from this trilogy at least. And that film is... So, believe it or not, but Dog Days was actually the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie I saw on the big screen. I had previously watched the past films on DVD. Anyone remember DVD? But I remember I went to see this movie with my cousins the weekend it came out. And I honestly can't remember much from my first time watching it, other than some kid playing Mario Kart at full volume around the beginning. That was really annoying. I did watch the movie a couple more times when it came out on DVD, and I remember really enjoying it, but that's about it. So, let's see how the final chapter in this trilogy holds up, shall we? Diary of a Wimpy Kid Dog Days takes place when school finishes for the summer, where we see Greg wanting to enjoy his summer by playing video games all day. The man's got goals, I'll give him that. However, his dad, Frank, wants him to spend his summer outside and not be a social outcast. This ends up with Greg at a country club where he runs into his crush from the previous movie, Holly Hills. Then some stuff with Rowley happens, Rodrick is a god as usual, there's some tension between Frank and Greg, and there is also a dog.
What the dog doing?
Now already, one thing I can give this movie right off the bat is that they changed things up here, where instead of taking place during the school year, it takes place during the summer break, which is a nice change of pace. And instead of this movie being based on one single book, they got elements from both Dog Days and The Last Straw. I haven't read the books in a long time, but I recall Dog Days having a summer theme to its story, and The Last Straw being about Greg and his dad's relationship. And again, the story is very slice of lifey, showing Greg and all the hijinks he gets into over summer. While watching this film for the first time in years, I kinda noticed around the beginning that Zachary Gordon's acting has gotten a bit stale. It isn't terrible, not at all, but he doesn't really have the same energy that he had from the previous movies.
I have one more week of school and then it's summer vacation, which sounds great, but
For me, summer vacation is basically a 3-month guilt trip.
This could be due to the fact that Zachary had gotten older and was probably hitting puberty around this time, but that was just a minor issue I had here. Everything else about this movie is honestly just really solid. I like how instead of the movie focusing on Greg's relationship with a friend or a sibling, it focuses on his relationship with his father. Frank was mainly used for jokes in the previous movies and would occasionally have some dedicated scenes here and there, but in this movie he gets full attention, mainly with his relationship with Greg. We see that Frank really wants Greg to be a good kid and wants to spend time with him and put his screen away. I know that already sounds really bland, a parent wanting their child to stay off their devices, and at first it seems like they're gonna go down that bland route. But there is this really funny scene where Greg plays video games all day but pretends that he played sports all day, and when Frank finds out, he basically goes apeshit again and takes with Greg's video games.
No, I've been playing sports.
Okay, that's it. No more video games for the rest of the summer. Does the DVD play good go under the cable? What, you think this is funny?
It's amusing.
Well, hey, how about then, no video games and no television for the rest of the summer? Does that make you laugh out loud?
Dad, no!
I stopped laughing. I stopped.
I also love how Rodrick is finding the situation funny until Frank threatens to take away the TV. Comedy gold, I must tell you. There's also a point in the story when Rowley invites Greg to a country club, but Greg decides to lie to his parents and claims that he got a job there. This, however, leads to him sneaking into the club since Rowley stops taking him there. Then he starts sneaking Rodrick in, which leads to some pretty funny moments that I'll get into later. And eventually, this leads Greg into purchasing lots of smoothies through Rowley's dad's account. And Frank eventually finds out about this and has to pay for everything. However, he isn't angry or mad at Greg for this. He's just disappointed, which I think we can all agree is way worse than someone being angry at you.
Aren't you gonna yell at me or something? Aren't you mad?
No. I'm just disappointed.
Frank even considers sending Greg over to a boarding school since he starts going down a bad path where he can't trust Greg anymore. On a side note, by the way, but I love how for the boarding school video, they go for a parody style with it, where it's clearly a shit school, but they're trying to paint it in a good light. That's really good. After that situation, their relationship is not doing too good, with both of them slowly drifting apart from each other while they're going camping together. Then we get this amazing scene with both of them sitting in a tent together and Frank talking about how making mistakes is normal as long as you own up to it.
Look, everybody messes up. Even me. But I'm not afraid to admit it when I do.
This is definitely one of the most emotional films in the trilogy. While the previous movies did have some emotional moments here and there, this movie goes all in with the emotions and does a phenomenal job on showing a real and genuine relationship between a father and his son who are struggling to agree with each other. Greg even has his own beef with Rowley for a bit. He goes on a small holiday with Rowley and his family and he thinks that they are proper weirdos, so he fucking calls the police on them. Like, fucking hell, Greg, will you relax? This main event is the reason why Rowley stops inviting Greg to the country club. And honestly, I didn't really care for this part of the film that much. It sort of feels like those stupid third act breakups in movies that I really hate. But they don't dwell on it too long, and they quickly patch things up with a simple apology. Even putting that part of the story aside, Rowley is as always a ton of fun to watch on screen. And of course, we got Rodrick in this movie, and as usual, he is amazing. What I really liked was how in this movie, we see Greg and Rodrick actually get along. It's so amazing seeing their relationship develop as the movies go on, where they hated each other in the first movie, learned to care for each other in the second movie, and eventually start acting nice towards each other in this movie. Now that is character development. Oh, I'm fucking dying over here. I hate recording audio so fucking much. He also garnered quite a few laughs from me, especially from the scene where he pretends to drown to get the attention of Holly Hill's sister, who I'll get more into later, and instead gets saved by some big fat lad and just starts crying. That man is proper traumatized right there. We even get more development with Greg and Holly's relationship, and it's actually enjoyable to watch. We see them interact much more and see their sort of relationship grow. It's implied that they become a couple at the end of the movie, but that's all up for interpretation, I guess. We also get introduced to Holly Hill's sister, Heather Hills, who is the definition of spoiled. I always love this scene where she drives over Rodrick's foot, and she just doesn't give a shit. Her whole character is sort of meant to make fun of those rich and entitled children, and this is perfectly shown around the end of the film, where Greg, for no real reason, suggests that Rodrick and his band No the Diaper perform for her sweet 16th birthday party. He didn't suggest them so he can get something out of Rodrick. He did it out of the kindness of his heart. And I think that shows Greg really changing and becoming a better person. And this leads to Heather's sweet 16th birthday, where, oh look, it's Jeff Kenny, where No the Diaper is about to give one of the greatest performances ever filmed.
You know you love me, I know you care, just shout whenever, and I'll be there.
I could honestly make a 5-hour video essay on why Devin Bostic singing Baby by Justin Bieber is one of the greatest scenes in cinema history, but all I'm gonna say is that I was given the will to live thanks to this scene, and it changed my life without a doubt. Also, Rodrick is such a simp for Heather. Like, first he pretends to drown to get her attention, then he does one of the greatest musical performances of all time just for a woman? Like, god damn Rodrick, you're a simp! So, after everything that has happened, we get an amazing conclusion to the series, where Greg has a good relationship with his family and friends, he's grown up and learned how to be a good person, and it all ends with everyone enjoying a nice barbecue. Also, there's a dog in the movie. It was only really in a few scenes here and there, and didn't really play a major role in the film, even though the film is titled Dog Days, and it barely features the dog. Anyway, time for the conclusion / ranking part of the video. Yippee! You know, rewatching these movies for the first time since I was like 12 was honestly an amazing experience. Most movies from my childhood usually turn out to be shit, and I was scared that I was going to be pretty disappointed with these movies, but I was not disappointed in the slightest. While they aren't masterpieces in any way, or something I would consider cinema, I still adore them. While they are relatively simple in terms of story, they make up for it with amazing and likable characters. Well, some likable characters. It's genuinely really nice seeing all the characters grow up as the film progresses, and seeing Greg's relationship with everyone around him change was honestly so heartwarming to watch. And like I said, these movies can be so goddamn funny. I laughed more at these movies than I have with any of the modern Marvel movies. How does that feel, Marvel, when movies for children are more funny than your pieces of sh**? But these movies are just so charming and fun to watch. If I had to rank them, it would probably start off with the first film being at number 3. It isn't terrible by any means, but it is the weakest film in the trilogy. Then Dog Days will be at number 2, and at the number 1 spot will be Rodrick Rules, a true cinematic masterpiece. Also, I do plan on talking about The Long Haul and the animated film at some point. I remember absolutely hating The Long Haul, and I haven't seen the animated film, so we'll have to wait and see. But these 3 movies are amazing, and I can't recommend them enough. And thank you, Jeff Kenny, for creating an amazing series of books, and you're somehow still producing them after 15 years. Fucking hell, man, what the heck?